Hey, how's it going, guys? Today I want to talk to you about a very hot topic right now, which is the Trials of Osiris. Now, when you think of Trials of Osiris, it's always been a hotbed of discussion ever since it was introduced back in the House of Wolves, and that discussion definitely has not ever slowed down, especially with some people still not ever being able to go flawless, and people having, whether it be DDoS issues or connection problems altogether. Trials is always something to talk about. So today I want to give you my opinions, which I'll give at the end of the video, and I also want to talk about a few things. So let's get into the first point I'm going to talk about today, which is the matchmaking. So, quick lesson on how Bungie does matchmaking in Trials. It's connection, and then it goes by wins. So it'll look at your connections, it'll just bring up a huge list of people, and it'll say, okay, these 5 people are also on 2 wins, we'll pair you with these guys. These guys are all on 8 wins, we'll put you with one of these groups here. And that's basically how it works. Of course, there are intricacies that I just don't know, not many people do, and only Bungie will know all of those, but that's just a brief example of how it works. So the main complaint here, the topic of discussion, is that people can't go flawless, and they haven't been able to ever go flawless because they're getting into lobbies with players who've gone flawless 9, 10, 15, 600 times, and they just can't compete. So they've proposed that in order to keep it fair for everybody, and to make sure that they get people they can compete with, that they are to introduce skill-based matchmaking. Now, let me tell you why skill-based matchmaking absolutely isn't the answer to this problem. When you get skill-based matchmaking, and Bungie has gone on record saying this, they're trying to achieve a very defined set of numbers. They want every player to have a 1-to-1 KD ratio and a 50% win-loss ratio. And yes, it may sound good, and I would like something like that just to make sure that every game is fun and challenging, but I don't think this will work for all the players who have been struggling. And here's why. Let's look at the numbers for it real quick. Let's just say that some players, they only have enough passage coins to buy the Mercy of Osiris, which is something I've seen a lot recently. Some players just can't get enough coins. So in that situation, you have 3 passage coins to buy Mercy, which means you have 10 matches to play, and you have to win 9. You can only lose 1 before you have to reset your card. You're looking at trying to achieve a 90% win-loss ratio when Bungie is implementing a matchmaking system made to make you go 50-50. So win 5 and lose 5. And losing 5 isn't even possible in Trials because you reset after 3. Doesn't that seem like a problem there? Doesn't that seem like it won't make sense? Because when you look, at least the way I'm looking at it, 50-50 or 50% doesn't equal 90%. So skill-based matchmaking, for that reason alone, simply will not work. Another thing is strict connection-based matchmaking. I don't think this is a good idea either because you'll always only be playing against the same people. Only the people who have the best connections, so in your local area. That's not going to be fair for a lot of people. Like, let's say, I'm pretty sure a lot of the good players are from California, I think like Ambu and some of those guys or whatever. I think I've heard they're from California. What about the guy who lives in Los Angeles who only gets paired up against, I'm just going to name 3 random people because I'm not entirely too sure where everybody's from, against someone like Defillment, IB Lazy, and Anbu every ticket? That's not going to be fair, right? It's just not going to be fun. It's not going to be entertaining. You're always going to be going up against the same people, and the challenge will stagnate after a while. And let's say people who live in like rural Kansas, then they're not going to be able to pair up with anybody because there won't be many people playing there. So let's say it's a low population area. Well, then what are they going to do then? They won't have any matches to play, and then the game is going to have to give them people from outside, and that's going to affect the connection. So in that way, it won't work either. I think the way Trials works now with the win-based matchmaking is ideal because if someone's on 4 wins and you're on 4 wins, both of you are good enough to get to 4 wins. So you're probably going to be closer in skill than you think. Of course, there are the outliers, there are people who love Trials and play it religiously. That's just going to happen. You have to make sure you play with your teammates and you coordinate, ask for help when you need it, and you're just going to have to learn to play together. That's the only thing you can do to fix that problem. If you want to get better at Trials, you have to stay with the same 2 teammates, and you guys have to play as often as possible. You have to make sure your own personal gun skill is good. You have to take your own steps. Each of you has to take their own steps to make sure that they are at a level where they can compete. Of course, it's going to come easy for some people and very hard for others, especially if you have a full-time job and a family. And another thing, Bungie has said before, I think it's a Derek Carroll tweet on the front page of Twitter right now, saying that the Lighthouse isn't for everybody. So if you really want the Lighthouse, you're going to have to grind and get there and just work hard. You can do it. Everyone can do it if they put enough time in. It's just how dedicated are you? I know that's hard to hear, but that's really what it comes down to. The next thing I want to talk to you about is something that absolutely no one can help but Bungie themselves, and that is DDoS attacks, people booting each other. We're going to be covering account recovery, trials carries. So let's talk about that part first. When it comes to trials carries, I'm perfectly okay with that. If you can find a buddy who's good enough to carry you to the lighthouse, or if you find a streamer to carry you to the lighthouse, that's really cool. Especially if they're doing it for free. Don't try to stay away from the streamers who, who only carry subs or only carry people who donate. Yes, I can understand giving people who donate more weight in when you pick them, but I don't know. That's just not something I agree with. I just think that's kind of lame. Yeah, you're getting paid for a service. I can understand that if you look at it that way, but it's a game and it's virtual loot. Does it really mean anything? It's not like you can be sold or traded for anything better or like any monetary value. So I'll leave that up to you guys. That's to your discretion. Are trials carries okay? Personally, I think they are generally, but if you pay for it, I don't think that's right. I don't think anyone should have to pay for a flawless run. Yeah, if their buddies help them go flawless, that's cool. If streamer helps you go flawless, that's all right too. But next is DDoS attacks. Bungie really needs to crack the whip and bring the hammer down on these DDoSers and booters and people who manipulate the system to get people kicked to orbit for whatever BS weasel anteater garbage that comes up on the connection loss screen. That needs to stop. Bungie needs to find a way to ban these people right away or give huge strict stipulations to where if you're caught cheating, you're done. Your account gets wiped or all of your stuff gets deleted or something. They have to stop this. I don't care if it happens once. I don't care if it happens twice. It has to happen the very first time someone cheats, they're done. There has to be some type of way they can implement a system that can stop these people because, quite frankly, it's getting a little bit ridiculous. It happened to me a couple times in year one, happened to me once or twice in year two because I didn't play as much trials. And to be honest, I haven't seen it as much in year 3, but I've seen so many more stories and mentions of people getting booted. It's a little bit ridiculous. So Bungie, you got to bring down the hammer, guys. You got to do something about these people because it's ruining the experience, not just for casual players, but for hardcore players too. Alright, so I know I said I was going to save my comments for the end of the video, but I've kind of interlaced them through my commentary throughout, so I'm kind of going to cut this section a little bit short, but just to reiterate some points, I think that where Trials is right now with win-based matchmaking, it's in the best shape it'll be. Like, conceivably, it's in the best shape it can ever be, because I told you why skill-based matchmaking won't work, I told you why connection-based won't work. Win-based is the only thing I can see actually being effective, because if you're good enough to get to 5 wins, the enemy team's good enough to get to 5 wins, you're probably closer in skill than you think. Another thing is a lot of players I've noticed like to psych themselves out. I remember my buddy Pramosas and we were doing a carry with this one guy named King J-Dog. It was back in year 2. And he was always, every time we were about to fly into a match, he was looking up Destiny Trials reports saying, oh, these guys have 2.0 KD, 1900, 2000 ELO, we're going to have to try so hard. And the first thing I told him every time was, stats don't mean anything. And the reason why stats don't mean anything is because as soon as you think about it like that, then you kind of psych yourself out. You intimidate yourself. And you can't do that, because as soon as you're intimidated by someone, as soon as you see that red name above your head, or above their head, you're going to hesitate a little bit before you take that next shot, because you're gonna go through this whole process where you're thinking to yourself like, oh look, it's like in this gameplay it was Miss 5000 watts. Let's say someone thought Miss 5000 watts was a good player. They say, oh look, it's Miss 5000 watts. I'm gonna have to make sure I hit all my shots on her because she's gonna outgun me. Then you spent that split second thinking that in your head, but time in game, that was already 2 bullets that went into your face while you were thinking that. So you got to make sure you don't hesitate. Don't overestimate your teammates, or don't overestimate enemies. Don't underestimate your teammates. Just make sure everyone is communicating. Make sure you put the time in to really get good with each other. You have to be able to play without communicating at a certain point. You have to be able to know, okay, if this happens, I know exactly how he's going to challenge. I got to be right there up close next to him to challenge with him. Like, for example, just in one of these gameplays here, and anyone, I'm pretty sure you could see it in the background gameplay, my buddy Pramosas, every time we got the first pick, he'd rush in with a shotgun, or anytime he saw an opening, he'd rush in with a shotgun. I knew that I'd have to get to him quickly, because when Pram rushes with a shotgun, he usually gets killed pretty quickly right afterwards. So I knew I had to be there to back him up. Whether or not I succeeded at that, it's always different. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. You just got to make sure that you're working on yourself, and you got to make sure your teammates are working on themselves as well, because individual skill is definitely a factor. Becoming a cohesive unit as a team, that can always be built up over time. So just if I had to sum it up in a few quick tips: 1, improve your own game first. 2, find teammates that you're comfortable playing with, not ones that'll make you rage, ones that add any unnecessary stress. And 3 is put the time in to get good as yourself and to get good with them. Anyways, that's all for the video today, guys. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know your opinions down below about Trials of Osiris. I'd really like to hear what you think. If you want to shut down anything I said, let's have a discussion in the comments. That's always fun too. I like to hear different points of view, because oftentimes if I'm set in my ways and thinking one thing and someone says something else, you know, maybe one's right, maybe we're both right, maybe I'm dead absolute wrong. I really want to hear what you guys have to say. It's always cool having discussions with you all. So thank you all for watching. I'll see you again soon, and there should be another video in a couple days. Alright, see ya.